in person. This is the first time in a couple of years that I've been able to be here to the Uetn building and attend in person. So thank you to those who are here in the room, as well as to those who have joined via Zoom. We'd like to welcome any guests and visitors who are tuning in, as well as Uetn staff who have joined us. We do have some action items for our meeting, but we are just short of a quorum for our board. So I'm going to skip the action items, including the acceptance of the minutes. And we're going to move, for right now, we're going to move to our discussion items. And then I'm hoping that we will have another board member join and we'll be able to go back to those action items. So the first discussion item is, if you happen to go to the Uetn board webpage, you will see members of the board listed with their dates that their terms are effective and when they expire. And you will notice that there are some that have either already expired or are expiring this summer. Given the leadership change that is taking place with our executive director, I have requested that we put a hold on any changes to membership in the board until later in the summer, perhaps our August meeting. This will give new leadership and staff an opportunity to reach out to those individuals who appoint to this board, giving them more opportunity to do with that. So I'm hoping that this will come back as an action item in August, but we will hold on any changes to the board until that time. So that's what that discussion item is. If you are a member of the board whose term is expiring, if you're interested in remaining on the board or letting us know what your interest or what your preferences are, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can make a note of any preference that you have. Of course, that is subject to whoever you report to, whether it's public ed, higher ed, libraries, whatever your representation might be. So that's our first discussion item. Our second discussion item is going to be on Lte Service, and I'm going to turn the time over to Ray.
All right, thank you. Thank you, members of the board. It's good to be back together again with you. You may remember it was just a year ago, the last June board meeting, where Jim and his technology group came and presented to you information regarding the 5G LTE, and they gave quite an extensive report. We've also had, because of the pandemic, we've had school districts that have really struggled in trying to find ways to help their students connect and be able to keep up with their schoolwork and be on top of things. You know, it's been referred to as the homework gap, the haves versus the have-nots. And so there have been a lot of districts that have contacted us and have asked for assistance in how to move forward in being able to help meet the needs of those families that don't have internet connectivity. So I've asked Jim if he would kind of give us a brief update of the things that have been happening. What have we been doing? What has our role been? Where are we potentially going as we look at this? And this is just a discussion. It's not an action item, because I hate to step out before the retreat, but this, I think it'd be my recommendation that this be an agenda item for the retreat, so that you can have a much deeper dive in the discussion as you determine where you want us to go as an organization. So Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ray.
First thing I would do is point you to, and if you wanted to open up your browsers and look at uetn.org/tech/CBRS. And that will take you to our landing page of where we have been documenting the entire project. And you can go out there and find everything from the project on that site. Corey Stokes is our project manager, and he's been very diligent in making sure that all of this is documented. It's a resource to our pilot members, but it's also a resource to anyone around the world, around the country, and we pointed many people to that. If you look on that landing page and see the how-to guides, I would just ask you to go to the how-to guides, and then below the first graphic there, you can see the one-page infographic. And I would point you to that and ask you to look at that. And this is a very brief explanation of what the pilot is and what the pilot is not. And are there any questions about that?
Sure. Yeah, just again, you go to Uetn or
uetn.org/tech/CBRS. So has everybody got that? Tim, can you bring that up?
Tim doesn't have it.
Oh, you can.
not found. Is it CDRS?
CBRS.
So I found it, but I found it under UEN, not.
Oh, uetn.org.
Yeah, it's uetn.org/tech/UEN.org/tech/CB as in boy RS.
Correct.
That link has been added to board docs now.
Thank you, Laura.
Looks like we're pulling it up. There we go.
So you look right below the graphic, there's the how-to guides. And so if you just press on the how-to guide, it will bring up the one-page infographic, which is down on the first row there, the third one over. That's just a recap that we gave to the board last June, and that is really a resource to you so that if you have any need to go out and talk with anyone about the private LTE pilot, that will give you the information that you need. And then there are other things on this. Everything that we've been doing is documented here within these pages. There are also some other things that go beyond this, just because we have identified 9 use case areas, and we are documenting use cases in each one of those areas. So since we left last June, we've been busy, and we had promised the board that we would be really focusing on use cases. If you look at the one-page infographic right in the middle, it just talks right there about our pilot looking at use cases. We're looking at the different use cases. That's really what we have been doing ever since then. Another initiative started in January where we thought we need to collect all of our lessons learned and bring those to the board. So since January 1st, we have been collecting the lessons learned, and Corey has been documenting those lessons learned also. And another initiative that started last October with discussions with Steve and has moved on to a group that I have been leading with the CIOs from USHI, is really a discussion about 5G and where the higher ed would go with 5G, trying to determine a strategy there. We have had many discussions since then, and we are down to putting together some personas. Eric Hawley has been very instrumental in helping guide us through the personas and looking at that. And so we have several assignments out right now. We're working on some position papers. We will be bringing those back to the CIOs that Steve oversees, and we'll bring that back to that group within the next month or so. And then our work in that area will likely be completed. We have been, with all of everything else that's going on, a couple of other things that we've been trying to do is we have been having conversations with some of our carriers. And there is a concern by the carriers that we're trying to access homes. If you look on the document that we don't have any desire to access homes. In fact, the Uetn pilot has been focused on campus access. And with the exception of a few long distance radios for particular reasons that we bought early on in the process, the only ones buying long distance radios are the districts. And you'll have to ask the districts why they're doing that. They've never received any encouragement from Uetn. In fact, they keep coming back to us asking for help to go to these homes. I think it has to do with the fact that there are still 50,000 plus students in the state of Utah that do not have connectivity. And they're trying everything possible, lots of different options to get to those homes. And that just is a product of the pandemic.
Jim, I'm one of those districts, and there's several of us in rural Utah that are looking at this, and districts that have gone to other places to get help with serving this problem. But we just have places that nobody's running anything to get to. So there's students that are out there that we've tried the hotspots, we've tried other solutions through the providers that are out there, and they're not working. So there is a need in lots of areas of the state where there is not a connection that will sustain the kind of learning at home that we've been doing since the pandemic.
So what do the providers say in response to that? They have any funds to get out to the homes? Or
Yeah, well,
say tough, that's not what they're doing.
no, I worked with T-Mobile, was one of them that I worked directly with, and they sent us a bunch of gear to try out, and we tried it out, and it didn't work, and they said, well, we don't have a plan to come there anytime soon. Was the answer I got back.
But the cable providers in the counties, are they going to?
Well,
Are
so
they eventually going to connect homes? Or?
that's our hope. But then Beaver County is another great example for that. The county has been trying to do their own network and been petitioning the legislature the last few years to try and do their own network for the very same reason. They see these places in the county that they can't get service to. For the providers, it's all about use case. Can they get their return on investment when they run the cable? And we do have a neighborhood in Beaver that they're running some fiber up to right now that they can do that. So it'll work out. But I don't blame them. They just don't have a use case that makes it viable to get out to some of these places. And I really worry for these students and families that they tend to be on the poorer side in the locations that they're at, and the availability, there's programs the federal government sponsors to give them free internet access, but there's no access to go to for some of these things.
So what about Universal Service Fund? Does that not apply to the situation? Do they still get the advantage of the Universal Service Fund, which is a fund to do the very thing we're talking about?
It is, and it's been a fund established since the 90s to do that, and yet the rural areas are still behind, or not even connected in some cases. We have dead zones all over the place.
So your sense is, as far as your district is concerned, that the real telcos aren't going to do that, so you're going to do it. That's what you're trying to do.
That's the sense.
And are the real telcos okay with that?
Yes, the ones in our area aren't objecting to that, and they didn't object to when the county was coming in to do that. But they've answered the most immediate need, which was the neighborhood that there's a return on investment for it.
The problem is with the feds is if, so the plan is to use the UETN network to go out to homes, right?
No, the plan is to use the UETN network to connect back to school district resources. That's the plan. We don't have a plan to offer any internet service or, you know, this isn't for watching YouTube or things like this. This is just to get kids to educational resources.
Yeah, what it is, so if you're going to connect to the home, which is not allowed under federal E-rate, but you're going to use part of the network capacity of UETN to draw on that content to go out to the home. As I understand in federal regulations, that's not approved and would have to be then separated out, and then the district would have to pay that amount of network.
It's called allocating the bandwidth, and we are doing it currently because there is sections of the network that touch places where it's not E-ratable areas. There are ways to allocate the bandwidth, and we've looked into that legally, and I feel very comfortable with what the legal opinion is on that. Especially post-COVID, they're encouraging us to get these places connected, and they did waive a lot of that during COVID, as you know. So coming out of that, the issue still remains: how do we get these homes connected? How do we get these students connected? And whether that's through a private provider that wants to partner with us, or us doing something that they can piggyback off of, I don't really care how it gets done. That's going to happen at some point.
The initial purchase of the equipment the district will pay for, is that right?
That's correct.
And is that true for the replacement of the CARES Act equipment as well, that the district is going to replace that?
That's all district generated funding.
So if I
And the
understand,
legislature's given us funds that have allowed us to do those kinds of things.
so what you'd want from UETN is to cost allocate.
That is, there's a couple different ways to do it, and my understanding on a network like this, we don't really have to guess about what the use is. We can see exactly what the use amount is. In my meetings, it's been a discussion of very, very little allocation that would have to take place for that.
So at least Karen is not here, I guess, but in the cost allocation model, there is an allocation for higher ed, since higher ed is not government mandated. So it's K through 12 on the program.
Yeah.
And if we go into modify that cost allocation, that could jeopardize higher ed, so that higher ed would now have to pay for their connectivity. That is a real possibility, I understand.
The way I understand it's being done now is it's an estimate, and it might change based on what the actual numbers are, if you were to cost allocate by the actuals. So we would have to look at that as a use case in UETN and see.
Could I interject here? One of the things we were talking about this with Lisa, Steve, and I, and there was a statement made that we didn't have the ability to measure the traffic. I've gone and talked to my staff, and as you know, we've allocated funds for instrumentation of the network. And because of that, Daniel Ebling and Kevin Quire have been working on that with telemetry, and we're going to roll out, and we're going to push up the time frame to roll this out. But you'll have the ability to give a very accurate accounting of every district and all of the traffic that comes, well, from all of our stakeholders, districts, universities. So as far as knowing the exact traffic, we've put that in place over the past year and a half with CARES funds and with other legislative allocated funds. We have the telemetry now, which collects much more data than the old ICMP type of data collection. And so we can give a very accurate accounting. That's not going to be a problem starting
When will
this
that
summer.
be?
This summer. We probably, I mean, I've got screenshots. We're actually able to do it right now, but we're still in some testing of that.
And do you have any kind of a feel right now for how much of the network capacity is taken up by IRA?
I cannot give you that. I can find that out for you.
That would need to be discovered, because if that's the case, and we are going to cost allocate, that means we have to look at the network now and say, all right, if your school district, and I guess there's a couple other school districts, we're going to use the UETN network to deliver the material, that no longer can be covered by E-rate, which may cause them then to look at the full cost allocation, right? You're smiling, but if you're a college, you're not smiling.
No, I was just thinking that when it comes right down to it, we can allocate it. This is just such a tough thing that we have to deal with, because most of the CBRS traffic is going to be generated at the schools. It's really just a complementary technology to Wi-Fi. It's just so much better than Wi-Fi in some respects, with the ability for security, for authentication, things like that. And so I'm just thinking that this is just such a small amount of data. But I really, when we talked to Lisa, I was kind of excited about it, because what if, I think we just need to go back and look at the technical capabilities and technology solutions that we can come up with. Because I thought, what if we could designate one site per district that is just outside of the district, that's paid for specifically for this technology, this traffic, and we just land it all there, and then we bring it all into the backbone, and that would look like a university site, and we could count it as one site. And I mean, I just think that there's lots of opportunity that we have, and we can look this over and find a good solution.
But Ray, my understanding from the feds is that E-rate cannot be involved in the connectivity of things, right?
Right, you want me to read this?
Yeah, if you have
Okay,
something-
yeah, this is what it says. It says, off-campus use, even if used for an educational purpose, is ineligible for support and must be cost allocated.
Yeah, we understand that. I think that Dave understands that. It's just
to
a
give
way to cost
more
allocate.
examples of ways to cost allocate after that statement.
Certainly
You're saying then that you have the instrumentation, and you'll be able to determine what that allocation is.
I'm very confident.
And at that point in time, if it's found out that higher education uses 50% of the allocation, then that would be adjusted, so they have to pay their full rate.
Well, I think that what we could do is that there's two ways to cost allocate, as Lisa has pointed out to us. There's a by site or by traffic. And what I'm thinking, and when I started here by site, is maybe we can really generate a separate CBRS network that we have a connection that goes into one site per district or something like that, and designate that site as the CBRS site, and we lose one site per district that wants to do this, and not every district wants to. Most of the districts are just doing things that are on their campus. There are a few that are looking beyond.
So, okay, so we'll still have that issue. We reopen the cost allocation formula, which could be adjusted by actual traffic, which means that higher ed may have to begin to pay thousands of dollars.
I wouldn't recommend that we allocate by traffic. We could do that, and we could tell you exactly what that is, but it's perfectly fine to allocate by site. And I just think we should continue to allocate by site. I just think we could explore the options of, could we designate CBRS sites as just one of the sites of one of the 1,800 sites within the network? And I think we don't have the details there. We just need to sit down and look through that with our accounting team and with our technical team and see what will work. Because to me, I'm uninterested in allocating by traffic. I think that would be a mistake.
Okay, so the other issue then that comes up here is the rural telcos. Now, your rural telcos are okay with doing this. Is that true in Emory?
I don't know what Emory wants to do, because they
You sounded
stopped
it,
talking
right?
with us.
Okay.
But
They're upset about this issue. right?
well,
So
there
is
are
South Central,
several different issues, but I think that all of this can be worked through. One of the things that we've been talking to one of the rural telcos about is how can we work with you? Because they have CBRS, they'll have CBRS radios. So I'm thinking that we're not really trying to, or somehow some districts may actually want to do this where they go to the student. And I'm uncomfortable with saying it's going to the home because it's going to that student device. It's extending the classroom. That's really what the districts want to do. It's never been a look at trying to get to the home and everything that they're doing in the home. They're trying to get so that those students have the opportunity to do their homework. I really like what Carl said to me when I asked him, they had, I think, 72 devices were the first number of MiFi devices that they wanted to use at Wasatch District, that they were interested in that. Then I asked Carl, how did you determine 72? They went to the teachers. They asked them, who's not handing in their homework? They went to those students. You're not handing in your homework. Why not? We don't have the internet. Those are the ones that they identified to be able to get to that. And it extends. And one of the things that's really lovely about this CBRS technology and this cellular technology is you put a SIM card in a district-owned device, and then you can allocate it and say that it comes back to behind our firewall. It has all of the filtering. It has all the firewall. It has all the protection. It has access to all of the resources. If someone wants to take that SIM card out, have you ever tried to put another SIM card in your phone and they send you a new one?
They don't need to.
Well, it's up until now, it's just, if you try and do a SIM card, it has to know the serial number of this device. You have to have both of those matching. So someone couldn't just take our SIM card out and put it in their device and be on our network. They wouldn't have that capability.
So it sounds like to me that we got more homework to do right before.
There is.
And I think it's the intent, at least from what I've heard from you and Ray, that we will never, as the Uetn, get into the business of bypassing the telcos to get into it.
It's never been any, never contemplated that at all.
That would be a district issue that David Long and the others seem to be willing to do. Right?
Well, and I can tell you on our end, our telco explored this at one point. And they couldn't cost out and figure out, well, this would be cost beneficial for them to do either. So they went away from it at that point. So it still leaves us with the issue of how do you get that student connected?
We have a comment or question from Patty.
Yeah, and I don't want to interrupt the flow of this conversation, but I just wanted to offer that I've been in 2 different sessions with Jessica Roslin Warsaw. I'm not sure how you say her last name, but she's the chairwoman for FCC, and she's been talking about what it looks like to increase the flexibility of E-rate funding, especially for our rural areas, and what it looks like to broaden it so that it's not about those spots that are stagnant, but those that are mobile as well. So really looking at the flexibility of E-rate, and I know that's been a big conversation for this past year, and they're branching out on that. So I just wanted to say that there is some future-facing things as well as what's happening right now.
Patty, did she give you any time or dates on when that might occur, or is it just in the preliminary kind of discussions?
Right now, it's in the preliminary discussions. It's part of the K-13 Cybersecurity Act, and they've been looking at some of the discussions alongside that, what it takes to get more mobility, getting it out to really, she talked about, in fact, I was trying to look back on my notes about those who have it and using the wisdom of crowds. And so they're using some different apps to try and find where those dead spots are, what they can do with it, what the difference is that they can do with E-rate along the way to provide more connectivity to those who need it the very most. So they're really opening it up and having those discussions, whereas before they were more closed.
Okay. So it seems like to me there's 3 issues here. One is we want to make sure we still have the collaboration with the rural telcos so that they don't feel like they're being bypassed, right?
We very much want to work with the rural telcos. And I would point out that in every instance over the past 22 years that I've been here, that we've done different things. Sometimes the rural telcos have kicked back because they didn't understand and we didn't have the right conversations. But there is no time that we have done anything that's hurt them and harmed them. We want to collaborate with them. We intend to collaborate with them.
And the second issue is E-rates. We don't want to do anything that would jeopardize our E-rate. And so that we would be careful to follow the guidelines and the
Absolutely.
laws, because that entails a lot of money. And then the issue of cost allocation. Getting into this may result in some kind of change in cost allocation, which higher education, who does not sit at the table of E-rate, but because they're part of the network, they get quite an advantage. We need to make sure what the financial impact would be on those institutions, and make sure that this is something that the board understands and votes on before we make a final decision. Does that cover it all?
Perfect.
So I move that they investigate these issues and come back in summer retreat with a solution as to how this could be resolved.
So as a discussion item, like, is their agreement with that strategy?
Yeah, I think we approach this and figure out how we can work together on this. I didn't realize the benefit the universities are realizing through how E-rate's approached now. E-rate is a K-12 issue, and I would hope we focus on it as a, how do we meet the needs of K-12 using E-rate to the greatest benefit.
But if the board were to do something across higher education board, that'd have to be something to be willing to deal with as a board.
Yes.
I appreciated Lisa explaining that, and I didn't understand, and we have never discussed those things, but it's certainly not our intent to harm
I understand.
higher education.
It's just that that allocation form has been set. This now opens that all up to be reset. And how that, or how the FCC weighs in on that to be reset could be interesting. What's your other?
Hey, Steve, this is Michael Shuping. It sounds like too, we're gonna maybe do a little deeper discussion in the retreat. I might add that I think we should include the E-rate in that discussion. So let's make sure they're invited to that meeting. Patty, I'm encouraged in the information that you just explained. So that's good news and new news for me. And then Steve, I just want to, Andre, just back you up on this. We do have conflict with our rurals, and we need to be careful there. And then the cost allocation, we'll need to make sure that we can do that from an administrative perspective as well. So that'll require some manpower. Just wanted to bring some visibility to that as well.
I guess, Ray, you can speak to this. When it comes between Uetn and girls, who wins at the legislature?
Steve, I'm sorry if you're.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what the projects are and what we're looking for funding.
Do you want to restate the question? I don't think they heard.
If the rural telcos were upset that Uetn or the districts are now getting into the home business and bypassing them, how would the legislature come down on this? Who would they favor?
Well, there is a no compete clause in statute that says that we won't do anything that competes with private enterprise. And so if we were to, if they felt like we were doing that, it wouldn't take much for them to go to a legislator and we would be the ones that would lose. If it was perceived that we were exceeding our authority, heading in the wrong direction, if we were trying to compete with them.
Yeah, my friends who made an attempt with Utopia to bypass US West at the time. And Utopia had a good plan, was squashed by the legislature. It's kind of reemerged in different ways, but nonetheless. That would be another consideration, is we want to make sure that legislative leadership has weighed in on this and that they feel comfortable with the decision we're making. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not that we want to stop progress. We understand the need for getting into the homes where they can get it. We just need to sit down in a collaborative way and figure out how we're going to do that without stepping on the toes everybody else causing those problems in the future, because UATN has always been that way.
Well, and in
Public-private partnerships.
in trying to build that partnership, anything we would do would be highly filtered and restricted. But the network we would build is something they could easily piggyback off of, make use of, and build that collaboration and provide things where it hasn't been cost effective to provide before. So it is absolutely the role of government to go in where private can't solve that and provide the use.
I think one of the things that can happen and help us with this is UDOT has a very good relationship with the URTA members. And I've been having some conversations with UDOT, and UDOT's been having conversations with URTA. I think we're going to come together on this. I really do believe that we can find a way to work together. And I think they're amenable.
Mr. Chair, Rebecca Dilch has her hand up in the Zoom. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Yeah, we are not seeing that on our screen, so thank you very much. Is there a question or a comment?
Thank you for letting me chime in. I am very interested in everything that you're talking about, and especially the conversation about Beaver County. And I feel like I very appreciate the sensitivity you have towards the rural telecoms. There is movement and some changes that have happened over in Beaver County area as far as providers. I think it is, what I'm hearing is that you have an idea, or the schools do have a definite idea of which students are not being accessed. And you know that we will be receiving a lot of federal funding, and I would really like to be involved in some of your conversations. I also work with the rural telecoms very closely, and it seems like this effort to reach the students might be a good short-term, to access so that they can get it right away. But I think for long-term investment, it's so important, I think, to have UETN involved with the rural telecoms and the communities, the counties, and pool the efforts together, have infrastructure that goes in that's, future-proof, this long-term. This funding that will be coming, the requirements is we cannot leave out households. Like they can't cherry pick and just reach the easy ones or those that are a good investment, as you were talking about. It will be required to reach all of them. And anyway, I just would like to be a part of this conversation if you're agreeable to that.
I would very much enjoy that too.
Thank you for those comments. Other discussion points on this? Sounds like this will be a future topic of discussion, and if necessary, an action item, but more discussion to come. Anything else on this topic? Okay, those are our discussion items. Before we go to the reports, I just want to check in again. So far, members of the board who have joined are myself, Patty, Jared, Steve, Chandra, and David. Are there any other members of the board who have joined?
Scott Langford.
Scott Langford, wonderful. We have a quorum now. Is that right, Denise? Mm-hmm. Great, we have a quorum. So we are going to go back to our action items then at the beginning of the agenda. So first action item is to approve the minutes from our April 8th meeting. I hope that you've had a chance to review those, and I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jared. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. Our next action item is the FY23 budget. This was discussed at our last meeting, and so it is up as an action item to approve going forward. There is just one note. UETN is still waiting to receive additional information on the ARPA funds. And so staff have requested let the board approve the FY23 budget with the caveat that once ARPA information is secured, if needed, they can come back to the board with any further action, but to go ahead and approve the FY23 budget as is. So I will entertain a motion to that effect. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second? Thank you. I think that was Scott, right? Thank you, Scott. Any discussion about the FY23 budget or that ARPA piece?
Any idea of when we'll get word on ARPA funds?
Not for sure, but it'll be towards the end of August at least that month before we find out.
And why the delay? Any insights on that?
I don't know, other than the governor's office, they're still working on it. And then as soon as they get it all verified, then they'll forward it to the feds for final approval.
So,
and we're the first group that they're working with.
Okay. So any ARPA request you're not going to spend it, then you're going to approve it.
Some things we have to order and get installed before the school year starts. Okay. So there will be some expenditures that we will make, but we're able to take that out of our emergency reserve if we don't get the funding.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion that's been made and seconded? All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The next action item, this is a meeting that, to be honest with you, I've been dreading for some time as a chair, as well as a member of the board for the time that I've spent. This is Executive Director Ray Timothy's last board meeting with us. And it's with much appreciation that we recognize him for the amazing work that he has done. His contributions, not only to UETN, but just the state in general. And I think it's very fitting for this board to recognize the incredible work and contributions of Dr. Ray Timothy by discussing and moving to approve a board resolution. And so I'm going to read that resolution now. UETN board resolution, and by the way, members of the board, you have access to this in your agenda. Whereas Dr. Ray Timothy, the CEO and Executive Director of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network, is retiring effective July 1st, 2022. And whereas he is a native son of Box Elder County communities of Garland and Tremont, and has earned degrees from Utah State University, Brigham Young University, and the University of Utah. And whereas Dr. Timothy started his career as a fifth grade teacher and then became a principal and later served as superintendent of the Millard School District and the Park City School District and deputy state superintendent of public instruction. And whereas he has dedicated his 45-year career to serving Utah students, educators, and communities, and has collaborated effectively with Utah governors, leaders in public and higher education, administrators in healthcare, state and federal lawmakers, and telecommunication providers. And whereas UETN now serves more than 78,000 faculty and staff and more than 877,000 students in public and higher education, as well as 141 public libraries, plus 21 healthcare organizations in 75 hospitals, all thanks to his leadership in funding from the Utah State Legislature and other sources. And whereas he has guided UETN and the state of Utah through a decade of exponential expansion while facing formidable challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic and merging of the Utah Education Network and the Utah Telehealth Network. And whereas UETN has emerged as one of the nation's premier broadband networks for education and telehealth under his 10 years of leadership. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network Board, do hereby express our appreciation of Dr. Ray Timothy for his exemplary leadership, vision, and friendship. We thank him for his years of service and for the foundation he has built for UETN's continuing success. We also wish him all the best as he embarks on a well-deserved retirement. Signed, the UETN Board. So I will entertain a motion at this time to approve this board resolution. Steve, thank you. Thank you, David, for a second. All in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And Ray, we have a gift here with this resolution.
Wow. That's nice.
Could you look this way, please? Thank you. And congratulations again, and thank you
Thank you.
so much for all of your efforts.
Someone knows how to pilot really deep.
That's rich. It's rich.
And we are not done yet. Steve, please.
Ray, we also have this card for you, a card of appreciation, thanks, and this small gift. So token of appreciation that you can now use.
We're at the church on Sunday.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Spend that much, so, can I say a few things?
Please do.
Absolutely. I just want to say this, what's a leader? You know, what makes a leader really good? And there's several traits that Ray has that makes him a great leader. And one is that it's not about him, but it's about the constituents that he serves. He wants to make sure that they are taken care of, and they're taken care of in a way that they can be better people and accomplish much more. And that's what a leader does. As they raise people to a higher level, you know, they raise themselves, but they don't need the plaudits in order to make that happen. And Ray has never been that way. You can call it humility, I guess. He sits down. Humility is something you need to have in order to be able to collaborate, to pull people together. And then he pulls people together and has a great vision as to what it could be in the future, puts together a plan and goes forward. And through the whole process, he treats people with respect and is kind. And Ray, that's made you such a great leader, such a great person to be around. And I've talked to legislators, superintendents, staff who really appreciate the way that you've led over the years. I've been down in Miller, been out to Park City.
Yeah.
They're kind of, and of course, we associated when you were at the state office. And all those
Couldn't
roles.
keep a job. That was my problem.
No, you just, you do a good job, and then somebody always wanted to have the advantage of your abilities and talents. So on behalf of the University of Utah and becoming I couldn't help. I know the University of Utah doesn't run this place, but you've always adhered to policy. It's been a good partner. You come to the CIO meetings and have really been respectful for them to make sure their needs are taken care of. And everybody knows that when you come to those meetings, that you are a good listener, and that once you listen, you then in fact go ahead and do something about it, and come out with solutions to solve the problems. So, I don't know what you're going to do now, but it's you deserve a rest. But thank you so much, and thanks for our friendship.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Ray, some parting words, thoughts? Want to give you are not, you do not have an executive director report on our agenda, so want to give you an opportunity to.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. I've been really fortunate in my whole career to be surrounded by good people. And I don't take credit, for what has been accomplished during my time, but the people I work with deserve the credit for that. I think what I'm going to do with my time, I'm going to get to know my grandkids better. We're going to do some community service, some church service, and we'll be busy. I'm not going to miss the work. There will always be work to do. There will always be that, but I'm going to miss the people. I'm going to miss the people in this room that I've had a chance to get to know, learn to love. This is the third time I've told the group thanks, goodbye, and I cried all 3 times. But I appreciate you, every one of you here, board members, those of you out, online. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Ray. Wonderful. Okay, we will move on to our reports now. And has Matt joined us? Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt is here. Great. Matt, we'll turn the time to you for the Telehealth Advisory Council report, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Difficult to follow Ray and his comments. As we started our UTN Telehealth Advisory Council last week, we let them all know about Ray's retirement, and everybody wanted to express their appreciation for Ray and his support and impact on the telehealth side of things. And so we wanted Ray to know that from the Telehealth Advisory Council, how much we all appreciated him. So I'll be brief. We had a fairly short meeting. We didn't have enough members of the advisory council in attendance to approve minutes. I gave a short report. The main thing that's been happening is we submitted all of our USAC applications for the next 5-year cycle. We submitted 11 applications. The total funding requested was just under $3 million from USAC to support the new circuits and equipment that are needed, which brings us to 82 total healthcare sites that will be connected to the Uetn network. So that's gone up over time, and we're grateful for that. A number of the hospitals have been building or expanding to new clinics and new communities. And as they expand, we add those locations to the network. So we're up to 82 sites now, which is great. We have currently 8 nominations this year for the Deborah LaMarche Telehealth Excellence Award. That closes at the end of the month, and we plan to have the advisory council review those nominations and select a winner, and that will be presented at the August 4th Telehealth Advisory Council. We're moving forward on an exciting project with the Department of Health to utilize the all-payer claims database. And we have preliminary data that was shared with the advisory council and gave them some time to ask questions. The data is really phenomenal in helping us answer questions about the populations in Utah that are using telehealth the most. The cost difference between in-person care and telehealth, a lot of other demographic information, and we really hope it'll help us as an advisory council be able to make recommendations to the legislature and others about the needs to solve barriers to telehealth and virtual care in the state of Utah. So we had a wonderful presentation by the Department of Health on that topic, and then had a great update by our NRTRC director on projects that the NRTRC has been accomplishing, and gave the advisory council members some time to talk about some of the challenges they're facing, as was talked about at the beginning of the meeting with broadband access in some of our most rural and frontier areas, and really other challenges and barriers still in place because of COVID and the different waves of this pandemic and the way that it's affecting primarily our rural hospitals and clinics. So we had great updates from advisory council members, and overall it was a great meeting. In August, if we have a quorum, we'll go back to approving minutes and taking care of some of the business. But I think I'll end there, and thank you for letting me share our update.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments for Matt or for the advisory council? Okay, thank you again, Matt. We'll now move to Rick for a report on the UEN advisory council.
Thank you, Chair. And first, on a personal note, and on behalf of the UEN Advisory Council, we wish to wish you, Ray, your best in retirement, and thank you for being such a wonderful leader, mentor, and friend. And although you will be missed, we're all very excited for this next phase of your life, and may it be long and enjoy it much. Thank you. As the advisory council, we met last week, and somewhat like the telehealth council, we also did not have a full quorum, but we were not able to approve the minutes. We'll take care of that at our next meeting. And that our four main discussion items were first around the software for FY23. Those are the programs that UEN has helped procure for both higher education and public education. And when you look at the website of dozens of programs, it is just a testament to the work that UEN does to support institutions with those kinds of software needs that they have. Often we only think that, we may only think of things like Canvas and those products that get that are being used by everybody, but there are lots of software products and that are listed on the website, and that you can see that go that really help schools and universities and colleges and libraries as well. So we did have a discussion on that. We also just had a brief discussion on the software procurement process that UEN has implemented, so that as new products are discovered or needs are identified, that there is a process of being able to move that forward, so that we can then make the case, either going through the legislature or going through the process of using existing funds to be able to add to that list of products in that, or to bring in new resources that will again help schools and students and teachers and faculty across the state. Additionally, we took a significant amount of time and really got into the K-12 technology inventory. That was led by Corey Stokes and Jeff Egley You had that presentation back in February when that inventory was first presented. I felt it was something that was necessary for the advisory council to see, particularly the growth in public education, K-12, and the number of devices, and the complexity of the technology that has come into the system, and the challenges that brings, and the support that we are getting from UEN to be able to move, to really integrate that effectively. UEN has kept up with phenomenal growth. I think, for me, when we look over the last 7 years of the digital teaching and learning program, we went from just over 360,000 devices to over 880,000 devices in that time period. And never did we ever lack for internet capacity to be able to make all of those work. And so I think it's just a testament to the good work at UEN and how they have supported schools as technology has really grown exponentially over the last number of years. We also had some time to look at the diversity policy and provide some input with Dr. Jen Gibbs, and I think that it's a wonderful policy, and the council was able to support that. And then we also had a brief presentation on one of UEN's newest offerings, and that is LitFlix. You might have been familiar with Sci-Fi Fridays, and now it's LitFlix, and how they've been focusing on literature and the movies that go with them. And I think it's a highly creative new resource and tool, and I think it's gathering a lot of interest in schools, and that I think it will be a great resource for for particularly English language arts teachers and making that back to the team. And I know that the specialists at the Utah State Board of Education are aware of that and are highly supportive of it as well. And so that is our report.
Thank you very much, Rick. Any comments or questions for Rick and the UEN Advisory Council? Okay, appreciate the work of both of our advisory councils. The last report we have this morning is a board chairs report. It's my opportunity now to update the board on where we are at with the UETN executive director search. As much as we would like Ray to stick around, we are excited for him and the next stage in his life and retirement. UETN moves on, and we are in need of an executive director. This board previously approved the search committee that has been tasked with reviewing and interviewing and narrowing, if you will, candidates through this process. I think my fellow search committee members would agree with me that we have had an incredibly deep and talented search pool. And I think that is a testament to you, Ray, to your leadership here, and to UETN, to the staff, to all the people that make UETN and the work that has been done with this organization, that it has attracted a national interest in the position of executive director. So I just want to mention that to say the search committee's responsibility has not been easy. And we have taken time and been very deliberate and careful in our review, in our reviews, as well as through the interview process. It is now my pleasure, and I'm pleased for the first time to make public the two finalists for the executive director position here at UETN. These two individuals have made it through the search process. They are first Patty Norman, who is Deputy Superintendent of the Utah State Board of Education. Our second finalist is Spencer Jenkins, Associate Commissioner of the Utah System of Higher Education. And I once again express my appreciation to these two finalists, as well as to those who might be part of this call or who might be listening in, who did express interest or who applied. Again, such an amazing pool of talent and professionals, but we are pleased with these two final candidates. Let me explain to the board the steps that will be taken next. Later today, members of the UETN staff, members of the board, and advisory council members will receive an email with a link for 2 town hall meetings that will take place next Tuesday, June 14th, one for each candidate. Those who are invited will receive the Zoom link to participate in that hour-long town hall. There will be an opportunity to hear from these 2 candidates and to ask questions of these candidates. There will also be a survey that will be included, that we will invite those who participate in the town halls to complete the survey. The survey information will then come to the search committee. The town hall will be recorded and available for approximately 24 hours until the middle of the day on Wednesday, at which time the recordings will no longer be available and the survey will be shut down at that time also. Following the town hall and the receiving of the surveys, the search committee will then meet again, and as is our charge by the board, the search committee will then make a final candidate recommendation. That candidate recommendation will then be reviewed as per statute by the University of Utah. And both the University of Utah, specifically Steve Hess, as well as myself as board chair, will then speak with that final candidate. I've asked Denise if she would schedule a UETN board meeting for next Friday. That is June 17th at noon. It will become imperative that we have a quorum for that meeting. We anticipate at that meeting that the search committee will present to the board the candidate and ask the board to ratify that nomination and the board to make a final decision on the executive director. If we're not able to make June 17th work, then we will move and call the meeting as per Utah State public meeting statute. We have to give 24 hours notice if we're to call a public meeting, which this would be. So if we're not able to hold the meeting on noon on Friday the 17th, then we will most likely hold the meeting the following week. And I will continue to communicate with the board and let them know when that meeting will be held. That's where we're at. And of course would entertain any questions from members of the board that you might have about that process.
Just wondering how many could make that date, could do this? Anybody who could not make that date?
Since we have such a slim membership in this meeting here, I'm hoping that first of all, those board members who are in this meeting, are you able to, whether you're even traveling, are you able to log in to a Zoom meeting on Friday?
The timing of it's difficult for superintendents.
Okay.
We will be in our summer conference and we'll be just wrapping up right then. So I think we could pull away, but
I thought maybe the 12 o'clock hour might hit it during lunch, but would it be better to go a little later?
Yeah, a little later would be much more doable, I think.
Okay, would say 2 o'clock. Okay, any other input from the board?
Let me double check. Yeah, it's just Friday. Yeah, that'll be the raffle.
Okay, great. So why don't we then go for, thank you very much for bringing that up, David. We will go ahead and go with a 2 p.m. meeting on Friday, June 17th. And once again, please watch your emails for later today for those links, as well as next week as we confirm the meeting on the 17th. We'll confirm with you that in fact will take place, but we're going to go ahead and get the public notice out and schedule it now, and then cancel and reschedule if need be. Any other questions? Okay, well, good. We are I'm pleased. We are making progress, and it's very exciting time. The other items we have this morning for our meeting is there are some recent video productions, and there are links to those for board members. We encourage you to go and view those links. And then lastly, our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th. Now, as a board, we did designate that next meeting as our annual strategic retreat in person. We felt like we were at a point that we could do that. We've not been able to do that. That's been a tradition of this board for a long, long time, but we've not been able to do that because of COVID for the last couple of years. As of right now, that all-day retreat, or that 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. retreat, which would be here in the Salt Lake area, is scheduled for August 12th. And there will be some business items along with that strategic retreat. So it will be a retreat as well as board business. The only thing that I'm going to say about the retreat is that once our new executive director is in place, or at least has been identified and ratified, myself and members of the Uetn leadership team will consult with the new executive director about the timing of that August 12th, on whether or not that still works for a brand new executive director. There are a lot of pros to doing a strategic retreat with a new executive director as we look ahead, but it's possible that it might be worthwhile to give our new executive director a little bit of time, in which case we might postpone the retreat and just do a regular meeting on the 12th. So for right now, I'm going to invite members of the board to keep August 12th all day blocked off for the retreat, and then we'll update the board if there's any change, and we'll get back to you about agendas and locations as those decisions are made. Though that completes our agenda items, are there any other questions or discussions that need to come up before the board here this morning? Once again, it's great to be back in person with those who were able to come, those who have joined via Zoom. Thank you very much for joining, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second? Thank you, Jared. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thinking there are none opposed, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.